So good morning and welcome back. Today is Tuesday. The sun is shining, but there are some ominous clouds over there. A little bit of a breeze. Good temperature for working. I've just had my weekly staff meeting, which is wonderful when you can do everything remotely and just log in on a computer wherever you are. And I'm definitely considering doing a lot more home office from here. Internet here is actually extremely good. It runs off the mobile phone network. It's very, very cheap. I pay something like 14 euros a month. And it works extremely well, very efficiently, not just to run the surveillance camera so I can look at the view when I'm in Innsbruck, but also actually working or streaming video conferences and things. All works very well. So all of that's done, which means it's now about 10ish. So a late start today after that, but I'm going to get stuck straight back in and we'll pick up where we left off yesterday. Okay, so I've mixed up my first bucket. This area here, is fine. I can plaster straight on top of that. There's basically very little difference in height. Over here, up at the top, there's a bit to fill out. The middle bit's okay, and the bottom as a whole as well. Down here, where it was very, very deep, there's lots to fill in, and over there and up there a little bit. So I'm going to get on and do that right now. And once that's done, I'll head down to the DIY store and pick up, as everyone seems to be talking about, these flappy discs. I shall pick up a flappy disc for the grinder, and if they have one, a belt sander, and then have another go at the beams. So there we go, layer 2. That'll probably do there, plenty for the plaster to adhere to. It sticks to itself so much better than it did to the stone initially, but you know, it dried out properly, so it's fine. That was the first bucket. Mix up another bucket for up here. Get that done over there and down there, so good progress. It goes quite quickly, and I should have just enough of this render to finish this up. And there we go. So that in 48 hours will be ready for plaster, more or less. Gluing the electrics, I haven't finished that yet, but that'll be the first layer of sticky plaster anyway, because I'm going to fill in the big holes with sticky plaster and then skim it with fine plaster. But that's a pretty good result. It is a pretty good result. What we did yesterday looks okay. I need to do the top bit there, and I need to do that edge of that wall, and basically all the joints, all the plasterboard joints. And it's just occurred to me that, because we're in Italy, the DIY store might be closed over lunch, and they're building a new one in the local village in Pontremoli, but it's not going to open for another couple of weeks yet, so I'm going to have to drive about half an hour to get to the DIY store, so I'd best check, make sure it's open, because I don't want to waste, I certainly haven't got that much time to waste. Right, so let's find out if it's open, and if it is, head down, and if it's not, do some plasterboard jointing. Okay, so in fact, everything's pretty much shut at lunchtime. I'm going to go to the builders merchants and get the flappy discs and not worry about the belt sander yet, and see how I get on with the flappy discs. That opens at 1:30. So until then, I'm going to do these corners here and keep going with the joints, with the green stuff, the waterproof stuff. It doesn't need to be very pretty because everything's going to be cemented except the ceiling in here in the end. So yeah, it's just a matter of mixing up a bucket and getting going. The most important thing I always find when I'm on my own here is keeping up momentum. It's not just sort of doing a couple of hours work and then thinking, well, why don't I go and look at this, check something on the internet, or have a cup of coffee or whatever. So it's sort of, you know, going, because it's not massively far away. It's 4.5 hours, but it's not round the corner, so I can't just pop in tomorrow and do an hour. When I'm here, I have to really make that time worthwhile. Yeah, right, keep going then. So things have been done better, but things have been done worse. It's done. I'm just going to keep going. Excuse me, just going to keep going. Joint. This unfortunately is all of the green stuff I bought, so that wasn't very clever of me, but it really just needs to fill in a bit. After this comes the blue stuff, the waterproofing layer, you know, that rubbery stuff, and that pulls the corners as well, because that goes on in separate bits. Then the cement, which goes on in 3 different bits as well, so the corners won't be too bad. The ceiling will be important, but I'm just going to band as much as I can with what I still have left here. Okay, so this is as far as we're going to get with the green stuff because it's run out, and I have a funny feeling that it was exactly the same on the other side. So still, it's a fair bit. There'll be another few bits, little bits. I just need to get another bag. That won't be particularly hard. So we've done that. I would say it's now time, that's sat quite nicely, to mix up a bit of white joint and do this outside edge here. And then we'll see, because that I'm going to leave to sit for a little bit. And by then, hopefully it'll be time to get to Lumachelli's, and I can go and pick up the those flappy things that everyone's recommended. And I hope that they do a brilliant job, and I can then use these last bits of plasterboard straight up on the ceiling. And I think, this morning I was thinking about it for a little bit. I think if I had another week full time here, it would be finished and painted. So I'd have to take about half a day to go and get supplies, or plasterboard and insulation, but most of the stuff is here. And then it's, basically jointing that up, jointing the ceiling up, plastering once round the room, which is very tiring, but it's not so bad now that the main holes are done, wiring everything up. And then initially, I think it's just going to be a matter of using perhaps those flappy discs again on the windows and getting them as good as they can. I'm going to buy glass, just like I did in the other little room. The door's quite pretty, and the window, well, you know, they will eventually be changed, but putting thick glass in them for this year or for the next couple of years until the subsidy comes through is not going to be a big game changer. And then obviously, you know, these days they're very good when they change windows. You could hardly tell on the inside, so they'll just cut the old one out and the new one should fit perfectly. a bit of mousse and a little bit of touch up. Because the room will have just been painted, you won't see any difference in colour because it will just be white. So it's a shame that I don't have another week, but I don't have another week. So I'm just going to get as much done as I possibly can now, and then we'll see how we get on afterwards. That obviously, you know, that's going to take a while to set. I could, in theory, plaster this wall, but I'd rather finish up the ceiling, actually, to be honest with you, which means get these beams done, or pretty much done. They don't need to be 100% perfect because I'm going to have to cover them up when I paint, but I'd like them to be good, and then afterwards, although in fact no, I'm wrong, I need them to be perfect and oiled before I start painting, and then I can cover them with masking tape and paper while I paint with the sprayer. So no, they do actually need to be perfect. So I'm going to put a lot of hope on these flappy things. Right. Okay, those two there. I'm now going to go and get some building foam. I'm going to squirt it in here, I'm going to squirt it in there as well, up here. I'm going to glue that sort of bit together, perhaps a bit in here, so that we don't get too much movement between the two. I don't really want it to crack. It probably will eventually, but hey. So I'm going to do that now, and then it will be time to go to the builders merchants. Okay, so I'm going to start with the belt sander. It's got an 80 grade, whatever it is, sanding loop on it. I've got my mask, I've got my goggles, and I'm going to go just a little bit further down the beam so that we get a proper look at what the difference is between the different things. Okay, so inconveniences, it's very heavy and it's quite hard to handle because it keeps trying to pull along the wall, but it does get up to the board. Some people suggested taking that off. That's a terrible idea because it goes all the way up, all the way along. No, I think that's not a good idea. It's part of, I don't even want to know what's in there. Honestly, I don't. So it's not bad. In complement with the plane, it works quite well. I know that the plane would, hits the occasional. There are a couple of nails in there, but it is not a quality machine. And honestly, if it does both of these before it dies, as it costs about 50 euros, it'd be cheaper than any other alternative like paint stripper or something like that, because the paint stripper costs much more than that. So next up, the flappy disc. I'm going to give that a go now. Well, Flappy has it. I obviously didn't buy enough of them, but unfortunately, as you can see, we have fire. My extremely cheap and nasty, and don't ever buy this brand of grinder if you ask me, because it's absolute toot. But it started smoking quite dramatically, as you saw on a little bit before. Now we're outside, it seems to have calmed down a little bit. I'm going to go and have a look what else I could put these discs on. Well, as you can see, we have a clear winner. The Flappy discs, as predicted by a number of you, are fabulous. It's still going to be a lot of work to get it all off, but I'm almost tempted to run the plane down everywhere once or twice, and then finish up with the flappy disc things. God, it's a bit smoky. That's actually smoke, it's not dust. From the window. Rubbish piece of tool. Okay, well, looks a bit silly, but this is my proper grinder. And that'll hopefully work. It's also, well, it's a new disc. I think there's still some life in the old disc, but this is a 40, and the one I was using was an 80, so I'm going to try next door and see if it roughs up the wood too much, or if that works. That's a clear winner for the big grinder with the 40 disc. That's brilliant, so that's what I'm going to do now. What I need to do is get rid of the disc guard, because it gets in the way, and it's not chopping, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. And then all the way along. I think the sides are going to be easy, the bottom will probably be a pain. I might probably go and get the ladder in a second, just to make my life a little bit easier. Okay, so I even tried to duck into there. It does sort of grind it down a bit, but it looks fine. And those little leftover bits of paint in the recesses and the little white bits, I think they'll be more of a feature than a problem. I put my mask down a little bit. So that's brilliant. But I think I'm going to stick with my last plan, which is to plane once over, get rid of a lot of the paint with the plane, and then go over everything with the flappy disc, either a 40 or a 60, depending. And then I think it'll look absolutely brilliant. I mean, this bit here, you can imagine that, you know, everywhere, with a nice white ceiling and it oiled up. I think it's going to look absolutely fabulous. Okay, well, put this on the floor. It's a bit dusty, it'll need a good wipe down, and the corners will need to be done with something, I guess. A screwdriver will probably get that off. And it's a pain, because the grinder's pretty heavy, but I think it's going to look amazing. I'm really, really happy with that. So, yeah, just keep going, keep going. I've used up another disc, put a new one on, and get back to it. Fortunately, my battery's almost empty, so I'm going to put this on charge, and then I'll film more later on. Okay, so I picked it back up off the charger. I've done a bit of the bottom, this. It's a bit, as you can see in the light, it's a bit dusty in here now from all of this. A couple of things. They've filled up all of the bad bits of wood with plaster over the years. So I'm not sure what I'll do there. I'll probably just leave it actually, because there'll always be a little bit of paint like over there, but I still think it'll look fabulous. But what I have noticed is, I'm using these discs at an incredible rate. I've asked a friend to pick me up some more. This one's Duff. And what happens is, as soon as they're Duff, instead of doing anything useful, they heat up, and you see those burn marks there. That's just because that one went Duff, and I was sweating away. So this is what it looks like when you're trying to work, and I couldn't see what I was doing. So yeah, unfortunately I bent a bit there. I'll have to go over it again. But I've only got one disc left, and it's an 80, and I've been using 40 because 40's been doing very well. The 80 I was going to use at the end just to go over everything, although I might do that with the orbital sander as well, or even the belt sander. Now, if I have every sander available to man, I mean, the first thing we tried on these beams was that chemical paint stripper, and that didn't work at all. Then I tried the heat paint stripper, and that worked a little bit, but it didn't work really well, and it would have taken months. What did we try after that? After that, I think we tried the plane, the electric plane, which was okay. Then we tried the multi-tool scraper. We tried the belt sander, we tried the orbital sander, we've tried this, the flappy discs. So we've definitely tried pretty much everything. And the flappy discs are brilliant, the best way. And if they hadn't broken my first little grinder, it would be much easier to do if I had a proper little grinder, and I do have one somewhere. I have another one obviously in Innsbruck that I was using on the car, because this is quite heavy to hold above your head, doing the various bits of it. But I think it's coming along nicely. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to pop the last disc on and use that up, and hopefully in about half an hour's time or 3/4 of an hour's time, my friend who works down in the village will pop by on his way home from work, and I asked him to pick me up a few more of those flappy discs, and then I can probably, hopefully, I've set myself the target of at least finishing this beam. So I've got to go over the moulding bit down this side. I will go down with the plane first, because it does take off quite a bit of paint, as I did here. This has only been planed, and when I go over that with the disc, it goes much easier. And then, yeah, so I want to get all of this done before I go home. I'm probably going home tomorrow. So it's this evening and it's tomorrow morning, which means it's probably more tomorrow morning, but yeah, we'll see. And then I need to obviously tidy up, as you can see. Not bringing Alex with me means I have to tidy up myself, which is a shame. But the results of really getting there, this room is going to be amazing. Okay, so good morning. It's the next morning. It's now Wednesday morning. I'm going to be heading home to Innsbruck probably tomorrow now. I was going to go today, but what I've decided to do is get on with things, or at least one thing that'll take time, where I'll lose time next time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start plastering the back wall with the proper plaster, because that needs to set for a while, which would basically just mean that I would lose the time next time we come, because I will have to replaster over the top with the finishing plaster, and I've got the ceiling, I've got lots of other things to do. But on this back wall here, I'm going to plaster up this back wall. I'm going to finish off the electricity all the way around, and I'm going to plaster where we put the mousse, the building foam in there down that wall as well. And that way, when I do come back, it will be with the family. So that way I can then skim. I'll bring the plasterboard, or I'll pick the plasterboard up here actually, probably in that case. And I'll be able to finish up everything a lot quicker. So the plan for today is get some plaster on the wall, and then as quickly as possible get everything organised, tidy, cleaned up, both here on the building site and in the house, See if I can use up these last little bits of plasterboard and insulation there, probably that bit of ceiling up there, as the layers of plaster dry. So get stuck straight in, get a bucket, mix up some plaster. Okay, so the basic idea here is to sort of level it. This is like a leveling plaster to get everything as smooth as possible, so that when I do the finishing plaster, I can go over it really thinly and everything will stick to the wall and it'll be perfect. So obviously, as I keep saying in here, we'll have cement in the shower bit, but out here it'll be plastered and painted just like in the other bedroom. So so it's going on quite nicely. It's got a nice consistency. I'm going to glue in this socket now, so I need something to push it against the wall. Should be easy enough, and hold it in place while it sets, and then, well, yeah, just keep going across the wall. I'd completely forgotten how strenuous plastering was and how bad I am at it, which is why I'm going to stay over here so that it looks just fine. Yeah, the closer you get, the worse it gets, unfortunately. But it's the undercoat. Hopefully it'll make life easier putting an overcoat on. It's drying very quickly. So progress is being made. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. So, ta-da! That's it for that wall. Nothing left over there, unfortunately. It just scraped out the last bit of the bucket. So that's pretty excellent. I'm going to leave that to dry for a bit, and while that's drying, I'm going to cut the expensive mounting foam stuff back to where it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to try and insulate up here and put that piece of plasterboard up there, get it out of the way. Okay, well, unfortunately I didn't film that because I was just holding it up on the little standy thing to see how it will fit, and in fact I've decided to leave it there. It's just the size of the sheet that was there. So we've got a little gap there, and we've got a little gap over there, and we have a little gap up against the beam here, which sort of changes, and a little one up against the wall, but it's pretty good. It's insulated above that. Now you can just about see it through there, the little panels. So it's going to be mounting spray foam all the way around, but basically it's there. It's still a nice high ceiling. It's going to be a nice flat ceiling. I think once all of that's up with the nice wooden beams, it's going to look amazing. So very happy so far. Basically I'm just going to use up the few little bits of plasterboard. There's one there, there's a couple here. What's lying around, basically screw it to the ceiling to avoid then having to throw it away. So, because they're all thinny bits, just going to keep going down here. Right, well, that little bit of ceiling's up. That's perfect. There are literally just a couple of tiny scraps of plasterboard left over. I need to measure how much plasterboard I need to buy for next time and how much insulation I need to buy for next time. Plasterboard, insulation, the glass I'm going to get here, and a lot of plaster and some paint. Excellent. It's been an exciting few days. I did stay a day longer than was initially planned. So I'm going to be heading back into the office, straight into the office tomorrow. I'm going to drive up and drive straight to work. I'm very happy actually with progress. I think, you know, this wall, now that it's sort of white, you can sort of better imagine what the room's going to look like. Excuse me. With the ceiling up there, it's the same thing. You can see I'm 6'4", and I'm nowhere near touching the ceiling. So it's even with this smooth, flat, slightly lowered ceiling, it's still much higher than a standard ceiling, and I think it's going to look fabulous with the two big beams brushed up in wood and oiled, and the rest of the ceiling nice and smooth in white. It'll be insulated. It's going to be a much more usable room. So really very happy with that. I think that's probably going to be about it. What I'm going to do is tidy up here, because it does get into a terrible mess when I'm working, because I just keep going and doing things and jumping from one job to the next. So it makes sense to have a tidy up so the next time I can just get stuck straight back in. And then I guess a quick beer at the Cooperativa. I need to pack, and then and I think tomorrow morning I'll be doing the clean up in the actual house part, well, the livable bit, which is just a quick hoover and that. Pack my stuff up, put it in the car, and head north back to the Alps. So yeah, that's about it. A quick look at the roses to see how well they're doing. It needs massive pruning, but I don't know anything about roses. I think hundreds of them have already bloomed and died, and many more are coming. So it's a wonderful rose. Well, it's a rose tree really, isn't it? It's not a rose bush. Yep, so there we go. And last things last, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for telling me about flappy wheels and all kinds of other things. It's a constant learning curve on YouTube. I've read through all of the... that's a big old hornet there. Don't like them much. Excuse me. Read through all of the comments, and as I keep promising, I will eventually get around to answering them. It does take a long time to go through, 100 odd comments per video. I hope you've enjoyed these couple of days out here. I certainly have. I'm going to miss it by the time I'm at the bottom of the hill. I'll be back, hopefully, if all goes well, and there are lots of things on at work, and it's a bit stressful actually. But hopefully I'll still manage to come back out here with the kids in about 2 weeks' time, probably a little bit over 2 weeks' time. We'll see. Well, yeah, probably the Friday or the Saturday in 2 weeks' time, and then we'll stay here for quite a long time, and I'll definitely get that room finished and moved into, and then we can move on to the next project. So for now, as always, take care. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, then subscribe and tell your friends and all of these things. You can follow some pictures every once in a while. I'll post something on Instagram, which is not useless yet as well. And it's just nice to share this midlife crisis stroke adventure with you. So yeah, take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. Bye bye for now. So just as a little afterthought, this is what it looks like now when it's a little bit tidier. It's not properly tidy, but it is a little bit tidier. I have to walk around a bit. So tripod, which I have been using this time. Here's our shower. Come out of the shower, back into the bedroom. Bed there. Brush your teeth. Look out of the window. So there's still a lot of glump here that needs to be removed, and I'm going to clean up outside now. But basically, I've fallen in love with this room.